Hello, it's part 15 of finally replying to old comments. And it appears as I've got myself stuck in a corner here because I called attention to having no comments in part 13. So then, part 14, I got a lot of comments, at least for this series. And it got me to wondering because I'm supposed to be boosting engagement to make the channel grow. But I'm also doing a thing where I reply to the previous video's comments, but if I get 80, I can't do that. So if that does happen, I guess I'll have to do another series following up of finally replying to old comments. But let's see how this goes with the 4 comments that were left to the previous installment, part 14. And we'll go from there. So, not of your life, always there for you, not of your life. Night of Your Life returns with a comment, and I think that song is probably why Night of Your Life went on a hiatus. But Night of Your Life said, I am sorry to ruin your perfect run, because I said there were no comments to part 13 because it was perfect and nothing needed to be added. So Night of Your Life cleverly left a comment to ruin the perfect run of perfection. Much like those protesters in Europe that threw the soup on the classic works of art to protest oil or something. It was a confusing protest, but they were aiming for the big turkeys. They were aiming high. They wanted to get attention, so they threw the soup on works of art that everyone would know about to get attention for themselves. And much like they ruined those perfect works of art, you ruined my perfect work of art. So I'm honored that you chose a work of art as high of caliber as part 13. Well, I guess it would be part 14. It would be part 14 that you ruined the perfect run of. And I'm honored that you saw it as such a high status symbol that it would get attention, much like those protesters. But welcome back. Next up, 99 Insight left a comment saying, a whole damn series on reading old comments. I'm in. That kind of sounds sarcastic. A whole damn series on reading old comments? You serious, bro? But then 99 Insight goes on to say, I still can't believe you have a YouTube channel, man. So cool. Well, can't anyone have a YouTube channel? It's not really an accomplishment. And finally, 99 Insight said, also, did you read my comment on video 10, but you said you wouldn't after you had already read it? Aren't I so clever? The way I said I wasn't going to read it after I read it, and then I read it again at the end. Wasn't that so clever to wrap that whole story up in one video with the callback? See, I don't like to be funny to make you laugh. I like to be clever so that you furrow your brow in thought, and then 3 minutes later you go, oh, okay, I get it. See, no laugh lines from my content. You just get the furrowed brow from my content. Clever, but not funny. No, there's one more line here from 99 Insight in this comment. Anyways, any thoughts on David Lynch's work now that he has passed? Were you a fan of him? Not really a fan. I appreciated that he was kind of an alternative filmmaker. I always appreciate when somebody goes into like a mainstream media outlet and tries to do something different than what the cookie cutter style is. They want to, expand the boundaries, and he seems to be one of those filmmakers. And ironically enough, the one movie of his that I have seen was called Straight Story, and that was the most mainstream of any of his. It was about a guy riding a lawnmower across the state to, I think, meet his brother for some reason. And it was sweet. It was a sweet movie. Wait, I also saw Dune, and Dune was pretty good. But yeah, we need more David Lynch's. That's my thoughts on him. Even though I wasn't really a fan, it's just because I haven't seen much of his. Next up, Megatinny said, in relation to the fact that I said there were no comments, Megatinny said, I just didn't want to look like a stalker. Guess I'm done hiding it. And then the laughing face emoji with the sweat coming down. No, you're not a stalker if you just enjoy somebody's work, their creative product. That's not being a stalker until you cross the line into their personal life, then you're a stalker. And for all anyone knows, this whole channel was just set up to trap stalkers, much like Chris Hansen and the To Catch a Predator series. It was all just set up to catch pedophiles. For all anyone knows, this whole channel was, hey, let's take a normal looking person and have them produce the highest quality content that there is out there to very, very little fanfare. And what the stalker brain would see out of that is the 10-point buck. Oh, wow, this is the highest value of a human being that I can go after, and nobody's looking at him, so I'll get away with it. And that would be exactly what the FBI would want you to think. But thankfully, nobody who's watched more than one video on this channel is dumb enough to cross over that line. So just enjoy the content. And then 99 Insight came back with another comment later on that said, hey man, do you have any more plans on doing more true crime content? Would love to see a series on Joel Guy, another low-life loser who kills his family for selfish reasons. Anyway, it would be awesome to hear your thoughts on that one. Just so you know, though, it's a pretty awful case in case you've never heard of it. So go into it knowing that it gets a little rough. Thanks. Well, I can do my entire series on Joel Guy right now. Joel Guy Jr. had no reason to be alive. His life served no purpose and had no meaning. The only reason that the blob of molecules that makes up Joel Guy exists in the world is to feed the worms after the life is over. And once Joel Guy Jr. goes into the ground and fertilizes it by feeding the worms down there, his purpose for existing will have been completed. And that's all I have to say about Joel Guy Jr. See, I've covered these other losers who kill their families because they have like a high intelligence, a high IQ. So it's a little more interesting to analyze, how did this person who seemingly has access to a lot of information and is great at recognizing patterns, how do they also, with a high intelligence, make the dumbest decision, like with Grant Amato? A high intelligence, a high IQ, led him to making the dumbest decision allowable under the current laws of physics in the observable universe. How does that happen? Joel Guy Jr. is pretty much just what he looks like, a worthless blob of a loser who needed money, so he decided to kill his parents because he didn't have the brain power to do anything constructive with his life. And that was about it. His parents paid for everything, and then when they couldn't pay for everything anymore, he killed them for the insurance money. There's not really much complexity or interest in there. He's like one step above the mass shooters. Like, no matter what the background, the color, the creed of a mass shooter, no matter what their motivation, no matter what their manifesto, they all fit into the same cookie cutter mold. Because no matter what they say their reasons are, they're all just like speaking different languages, but saying the same exact thing. There's nothing interesting about any of them. They're all the same ugly, unimaginative losers, failures, who don't want to try, so they give up and just take the simplest way out possible. They all just relegate themselves to the same, even though they think they're being unique and standing out and getting positive attention as being some sort of rebel. They're actually relegating themselves to the same like profile as every other ugly, unimaginative failure before them. And by failure and loser, I don't mean someone who's unlucky or unfortunate or born in circumstances where they don't have access to success. I'm talking about people who should know better and still choose to go the loser route. So I guess I went a little further out into the weeds on Joel Guy Jr. than I intended there, but that's what I have to say about him. That's why I'm not going to do a whole series on Joel Guy Jr., and I'm not really a fan of true crime. It's only when there's some kind of unanswered question or something worth analyzing, like a deeper look that'll help you understand people better, that I want to look into, um, the case a little further based on the details. Joel Guy Jr. didn't exactly inspire me to do that. But thanks for leaving the comment. So now we move on to, what was that, about 10 minutes just on the last installment's comments, 4 comments. All right, so I guess that's probably the limit. We probably shouldn't go any higher than that. And if it gets any higher than that, then I'm going to have to just do that snake eating the poop out of its own tail from eating itself series of finally replying to old comments comment series. But let's see what happens. Maybe this series will never catch on, and it will always be just a comment here and there, and it'll be easy to reply to. All right, so where did I leave off? I left off with, oh yeah, the smell, how Graham smells good, and that's why Chris would stay in there. A comment from Cheryl Johnson. So the next comment to reply to from his master plan revealed part 7 is from DB2637, who said, "Hey, no doubt Graham is a man's man. Speaking from the female point of view, I also appreciate his gentle words, his care and concern, and the way he worms his way into CW's heart. Quote, this doesn't end here. We can always talk to you, unquote. I have watched the interrogation numerous times, me too, because it's perfection in action. I agree. I'm continually amazed. Well, enough about that. I have gained even more insight with the help of your commentaries. Thanks. You're welcome, and thank you for saying such. I never know until someone says something. I think I'm doing a good job, but unless no one says anything, I don't really know for sure. But I'm glad that you said that I think you know where I'm going with that. I don't have to finish that sentence, do I? Marion9148 said, but if you are ever going to be an actor in a movie, you should play the role of Chris Watts, smiley face. This case is so bad, but I often start laughing seeing you imitate him. Yes and yes. That's the way he thinks. Thank you for my smilings. You're welcome. You know, when I first started doing the imitation of Chris, I kind of wondered if it was in poor taste because it's such a serious crime, and I'm thinking about the victims, and what if the still living victims of this crime would watch it and then they would think I'm just like making light of the crime. But the fact, seeing comments like that from Marion said, okay, it is in good taste. It's making fun of the person who deserves ridicule. So I can still respect the victims of the crime while ridiculing the perpetrator of the crime. So all is right in the world. Thank you. Rat Scabies 38 said, great series. Thank you, Rat Scabies. I hope you get that condition cleared up. 10DF Day said, brilliant analysis. Thank you, 10DF Day. Megatini said, the head growing is just wonderfully absurd and hilarious. Because in this part of the series, I made a comment about how his head growing back was supposed to be going up his own ass because of how big his head got. Because it would have had to have inflated from such an ego to think he can get away with this. When so much is pointing to the fact that you were never going to get away with this, you must have had such an absurdly huge ego to even try. Deb Richardson said, very enjoyable, thank you. You're welcome, Deb Richardson. Marion9148 came back with a longer comment. Marion said, yes and no. I think sociopaths believe that the rest of the world is there for solving his problems. It's a great deal if other persons don't solve the problems. I'm reading it the way it's written. And enough reason to punish or simply delete them. They made him do that. Shanann made him do that because she was not accepting his demands for separation, and she didn't take all of the caring issues with her children, money, and just left. She didn't serve his needs. He did warn her. She didn't listen. I think Marion is speaking here in the point of view, from the point of view of the sociopath, and not actually saying that Marion believes this. So continuing on. So she has made what then happened. She ruled out her right to exist. The children were only her extension, so such people have developed to the age of 2 or 3, not any further. Oh, that's what I said in part 14 about how he stopped. I mentioned how there was a future comment coming up about how they stopped developing emotionally at the age of 2 or 3, which is why Chris would then be threatened by Bella and Celeste growing to the ages of 3 and 4 and already being more mature in a human sense than their 33-year-old father, which is, with no scientific background, a legitimate conclusion that I draw, is that he was threatened by them being more mature than him emotionally at the ages of 3 and 4. And apparently Marion thinks similarly by saying that he did not develop beyond the age of 2 or 3, except in terms of IQ, which he continued to develop. So continuing on with this comment, he is the small, innocent, good boy whose needs weren't seen. That's why sociopaths keep always being the victim. They just react in a proper way to the things that happen to them. They always get their needs served in one way or another. Too bad they made him getting them served his way. Shanann was evil so and killed herself and that children on Biz poor back. Can you come back and clean up that syntax, Marion? What a pity for him, his thoughts. So that's Marion admitting that all those evil thoughts were not written from Marion's point of view, but were written from the point of view of the sociopath. But he has forgiven them now and talks to them every evening. He has always been a good guy and still is. P.S. I think Graham did a really good job. He served his needs, like you said, and therefore Graham was Chris's best friend in that moment. He worked for him like he should, Chris's thoughts. But I prefer talking to people that mean what they say. Me too, Marion. Really, the deceivers are the reason that we aren't further along as a species. Because, it's selfish to deceive. I'm not saying anything revolutionary here. This is all obvious, but it's true. The deceivers are always, the reason they have to deceive is because they know their motivations and their goals are going to be appalling to everyone around them. So they have to, come up with lies to make everyone around them think, oh, this is what he's doing is for the good of everyone. They have to deceive to get what they want because it's only for them at the expense of everyone around them. And that's why, as a whole, we don't get further along, because it's the deceiver goes, hooray for me and screw all of you. So that's Sonia Marie Alves de Mello. Could you find detailed on the last birthday party the kids went if these party really happened? I read that word for word from Sonia Marie Alves de Mello. Yes, I found public evidence that there's a picture of Chris with Cece and Bella at the birthday party. And there's also a podcast called Eyes of a Monster that interviewed the parents of the kid who had the birthday party where Chris and his daughters was at the day before Chris murdered them. So we do live in a time where that could all be faked, but those pieces of evidence are out there. Whether you want to get into, you can look into all the other people who were at the party, go into their social medias and determine if they're real people, determine if the people having the birthday party really had it that way, without crossing the line into becoming a stalker, because maybe that's another FBI trap. But the evidence is out there is the point of all that. And the next comment is a long one, so I'll have to save that for part 16. So thanks for coming along and blah, blah, blah.